Hello, welcome to Politics South. Coming up on today's show, should Southampton Airport get the green light for its runway extension? Now that the tunnel past Stonehenge has been given its green light, where does that leave opposition to other major infrastructure projects in the south? And the real cost of the second lockdown. Do businesses have any chance of catching up on what for many should be their most lucrative time of the year?
I don't imagine we will get to our levels of previous year's trading, certainly through any part of 2021.
All that's still to come. First, let's meet the two politicians who are here with me for the duration. Gillian Keegan is the Conservative MP for Chichester, as well as being the Apprenticeships and Skills Minister. And Duncan Enright is leader of the Labour group on West Oxfordshire District Council. Welcome both of you to the programme. Now, good news this week with the announcement that the government started planning the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine, set aside £150 million to help GPs distribute it. Some, though, have raised concerns about the impact on their day-to-day work with other patients.
There's been some quite scary headlines I saw this morning that we'd stop doing everything else we do, which obviously can't be true. We need to carry on our normal service and looking after people as we would, as well as fitting in lots and lots of vaccinations. So I think it means that we're going to be working even harder. We're probably going to be calling back in doctors who've retired and nurses who've retired to come and help us do this. And it probably means we're going to be open longer hours and at weekends so that we can do these vaccines. One of the difficult things I think about this is because it's such a new vaccine and we don't know how well it will be tolerated. We assume that it won't be a problem, but we've been asked to observe each patient for a quarter of an hour after they've had the vaccine, just to make sure they're not having a reaction to it. And that's actually going to be one of the harder things to do, to find space to look after everybody.
And a lot more besides. I mean, this is a huge operation, isn't it, both of you? Gillian Keegan just cramming together lots of vulnerable people, and then they've got to come back for a second injection as well. I mean, nothing like this has ever been done before, certainly on this timescale, has it?
Nothing like anything we've done in coronavirus has been done before. The sheer logistics of setting up the testing systems we've done, the PPE distribution we've done, the hospital bills we've done, and now it'll be the vaccine.
Well, you say we've done. Some of it didn't go very well. Are you more confident about the vaccine?
I think that's a cheap shot, actually. I think most of it. Clearly, if you're trying to do stuff and you're facing these challenges with very little notice, then they're not going to go perfectly. But when you go from 2,000 tests a day in March to more than 500,000 tests a day at the end of October, you've got to acknowledge that the people involved, and by the way, this isn't government, this is a whole load of public sector, private sector, doctors, NHS, lots and lots of companies, lots of people across the country involved in this, and the vaccine will be exactly the same. There'll be many people involved. Right now, they're putting the plans together, the resilience forums and the local health, integrated health agencies are putting their plans together. We've got many more people who can also deliver vaccines. So we've also we changed the regulations so that independent nurses, other healthcare professionals, paramedics, physiotherapists, many more people can deliver the vaccine. We've been getting ready this for the flu vaccine as well. 30 million flu vaccine jabs. There's no doubt that it's incredibly difficult, and there's the logistics of also storing this vaccine if this vaccine is the one indeed that's approved. But I've no doubt that we'll do a good job and we'll do our best working together.
Your best, I'm sure. You've got to keep public confidence, and that's where, cheap shot or not, there has been people worried about the way that the government has been operating on things, haven't they, Duncan Enright?
Yeah, because the test and trace has been a dog's dinner, frankly. But one things we do know is the NHS delivers time and again. The people who work in it do an absolutely magnificent job. The GPs have kept things going during the lockdowns and have looked after people. Local councils are also already involved in discussions about how their vaccine is going to be delivered. And that's the way it should be. These are the people who know what they're doing. There's a job here as well for pharmacists, of course. They're a very important part of this. But I'm very pleased to see that the GPs are going to be doing this. They need the resources so to do, though, and in order to keep patient care going, I think some of the things should be stopped. So, for example, some of the CQC inspection work, there's absolutely no point in doing that work during a period of crisis like this. So anything that can be shelved that doesn't have an impact on patient care or the vaccination programme can be set aside, and so that our NHS...
You could decide too much, though, couldn't you? I mean, that sounds like a bit of a dangerous recipe.
Patient care is what matters. So as long as patient care is kept up, and we also get the vaccination programme delivered, I don't think we need to do some of the paperwork and inspections and other ancillary pieces, which I think don't add a great deal at a time like this. We're not going to learn a great deal about whether a GP practice is 5-star or 3-star in terms of its administration, when they should be getting on with the job of vaccinating and looking after patients.
Right, well, let's hope it does go well. With the virtual collapse in air travel and with airlines shedding planes and staff all over the world, it's an odd time to be talking about airport expansion. But Southampton Airport is just coming to the end of a consultation over its plans to extend the runway by 164 metres. Joining me now is Steve Solly, Operations Director at the airport. Steve, strange time to be thinking about expansion. Why did you not just put this off?
It seems that way. I mean, I'd say maybe it's not expansion. It's a runway extension rather than an airport expansion. We're talking about 164 metres of tarmac within our existing boundaries, so the perimeter fence doesn't change. But the reason why it's so critical at this time is because of the loss of Flybe. Quite rightly, everybody's concerned about COVID, and COVID has just been another nail in our coffin. But even when the vaccine, and I hope it's a huge success, and I'm sure it will be, but even when that's rolled out, Southampton Airport and other regional airports will still be reeling from the loss of Flybe, and our very existence is at stake.
Isn't it a sign, though, you're thinking you're just going to go back to the old way of doing things? And, you know, global warming, the noise, you're looking for bigger planes, aren't you?
Well, I don't think we will be going back to the old ways. I think what this does, this 164 metres, this gives us a chance at survival. And when it comes to environmental issues, for example, one of the reasons why the consultation has gone on so long is because we've been listening to those concerns. And the last part of the consultation was us putting in measures in place for Eastleigh Borough Council to actually put a noise cap on us at noise levels, and also to increase the compensation from sort of £3,000 to £5,000 for the noise insulation scheme. So I think we've been listening as part of the consultation, we've been listening to those concerns. But I think as part of regional recovery, I think we're a really important asset, and of course we have to be here, we have to exist to play a part in that regional recovery.
How close are you to not existing? It's empty there behind you.
It is, you know, you'd expect 5,000 people a day. With the loss of Flybe, that went down to say 1,000 people a day. Now, with a lockdown, we're talking about some days 35 to 50 people. Yesterday there were 160 people. So it's very, very difficult. And it's difficult not just for the airport, but for the entire aviation network. And that's all the suppliers, the baggage handlers, the security firms, the car parks. Everybody's making redundancies, and aviation's on its knees at the minute.
And why should Southampton continue when other places will surely have to close?
Well, because we've got a good plan. If you think about location, at Southampton, we've got a train station coming right into the airport, 99 steps. We've got a motorway junction right at our front door. So we've got everything we need to be a critical piece of national infrastructure. What we just don't have is the runway that can take modern fleets. So our runway was perfect for Flybe. You know, you had little aircraft on a little runway and flying to destinations not too far away, such as regional France and then the rest of the UK. But what that 164 metres does, that opens us up to other airlines, to routes which can help with the regeneration of Southampton with regards to the cruise industry. We could fly to Hamburg, we could fly to Bergen, we could fly to Venice, we could fly to Malta, and also as well other industrial places and capitals. You know, if people wanted to fly to Rome, to Budapest, instead of just regional France.
Yeah.
And this investment, it's £15 million of investment. It's not public money. You know, if we don't get a chance to use that here at Southampton Airport, it will just disappear. It will go away.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Let's just turn to our guests then. Gillian, Keegan, you know, you're running this new Green Jobs Task Force. You're thinking about the money's going to be, you know, going towards finding 2 million new jobs by 2030. Why? I mean, aviation surely is one of the places which is going to have to lose jobs, and they could move to something more green.
I think the green jobs is really shifting the focus from actually current jobs moving to become more green jobs. So, for example, oil and gas sector may be more into renewables, transport into cleaner versions of transport. Well, this is transport.
This is aviation.
It is, but there's no doubt that aviation and our travel industry have been massively impacted by coronavirus, and you know, it's an incredibly difficult time for them. And of course, Southampton, which is a great airport, has also had the impact of Flybe as well. So you know, I can see why they've been making plans, and I can see why they would also be consulting on those plans. You know, obviously we've extended the furlough scheme to help as much as we can with all this uncertainty that our businesses and industry have. But in terms of green jobs, that's a goal to create these 2 million green jobs by 2030. But we are not saying by doing that we will not be flying anywhere, we will not have airports, and great airports like Southampton won't have businesses. So I think you've got to, you know, have a more sophisticated approach. You know, I don't know, they'll be consulting locally, but clearly, you know, airports have been and aviation have been massively impacted by coronavirus.
Yeah. Okay, Duncan Enright, should they be allowed to come back to the same state after we've finally got rid of this horrible virus?
Well, not the same state, but I can't be the only person who's just dreaming of being able to travel again. I mean, it'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
That list of destinations.
And it's one of the things we've all really missed. The airline industry is one of those industries, though, that has come a long way in recent years in cleaning up its act. And I think some of those green jobs ought to be deployed to try and move towards a zero carbon air industry. We still want to travel after all of this is over. We still want to see our world, don't we? We enjoy travel. We need it for business. This is an important industry for Britain as well. We're a hub. And I'd love to see some more effort going into trying to solve that tricky problem, the climate change issue, but at the same time giving people access to the world.
And quieter planes as well, which is
quieter
we're
planes.
hoping for.
They're much quieter than they used to be. We've got a long way to go still, though.
Right. OK, Gillian, just to come back to that green jobs target you've got, 2 million is a huge number. You must be including all sorts of things other than insulating people's houses and building wind turbines offshore.
Sure, it's looking at it's looking at what we need to do to meet that net carbon zero target by 2050. And there's an awful lot of work to do. And clearly there'll be many different streams to that work. But this is task force that we just set up with many different industry representatives, many different academics as well, unions, and all people representing those that are concerned for their existing jobs, or also those that want to make sure that we we put a focus on the new jobs that this target will generate,
yeah,
and there'll be kinds of sectors.
Can I, Duncan? I mean, that's the national imperative, but you've obviously got local opposition to the airport here, you know, and it seems that things are being dictated in a national way through this pandemic. You've still got to listen to the locals, haven't you?
You do, yes, absolutely. And there's some work going on at the moment. For instance, locally for active travel, we've heard today that Oxfordshire has been awarded money from a fund for improving pedestrian and cycling facilities, which is extremely welcome, including across Witney, by the way. Come and see Witney's new active transport network. And these kind of things are very valuable, but they've got to be tuned and tweaked to meet local need, and local communities have to have a say in all of that.
OK. Still to come. The Transport Secretary gave the green light this week for the controversial tunnel to take the A303 past Stonehenge. But the arguments about huge infrastructure projects are far from over. Now, there's obviously never a good time to impose a national lockdown, but the run-up to Christmas has to count as about the worst. This is the time of year when many businesses make the money that will see them through leaner months at the start of the year. Even if we do come out of lockdown on December the 2nd, will that be enough time for a high street that's already taken a battering to recover? Our Berkshire reporter Patrick O'Hagan's been talking to a number of local businesses.
Without the fiscal intervention of the government, we were facing Armageddon.
In the run-up to Christmas, the Vineyard Hotel and Restaurant in Newbury would usually be buzzing, its manager checking his bedrooms just so while getting ready to greet his guests. Not now, though. The Vineyard's part of a wider group which includes 2 more hotels and a couple of golf courses.
To close them, just to operate them on a basic staffing structure to give safety, security and a little bit of admin, is in excess of £200,000 a month. And our reserves would have run out very, very quickly.
After the first lockdown, restaurant takings were down a third on 2019. Lockdown 2 is due to end in the first week of December, and Andrew says that right now, advanced bookings are thin on the ground.
I think there'll be more caution when we come out this time, perhaps. Christmas parties are just not going to happen. And I also see demand for early December is pretty flat, so I'm not as optimistic.
So far, Andrew's managed to hold on to most of his staff, courtesy of the government's furlough scheme, but is worried what will happen when it ends. Here in Winchester, the streets look busy, but smaller independents are also worried what Christmas might bring.
Not going to lie, it will be tough. Getting enough people through the door with social distancing, footfall. At Christmas we would have a queue of, say, 10 people at the till. We won't be able to do that.
Realising this Christmas is likely to be the toughest of her 25 years in the business, Alison says she's been forced to act on something she's been meaning to do for some time.
We realised that there was no way that we would be able to survive through the Christmas period. So we looked at what we needed to do to take it forward.
Which was?
Which was a website so that our customers can do click and collect. We can have it ready for them at the door. As opposed to normally customers would come in, and have a good browse, perhaps September, October, make their ideas of what they want to get for Christmas presents. And obviously that's gone now. But at the end of the day, Santa's still got to come. So we are still here to help the customers. Today we've taken phone calls from customers. We've done orders ready for collection. We've offered local deliveries, and we will continue to do that to support the customers as best we can.
And she might be doing it just in the nick of time.
We've seen online retailers have better and better Christmases over at least the last 10 or 15 years. And this year they could be in for a bumper year. And for smaller businesses that can't set up a fancy website and can't arrange delivery and click and collect, this is likely to be a huge problem.
Steve says smaller shopping centres like Tilehurst will find it particularly hard to survive the current crisis, but feels it's a problem that's long been coming.
These sorts of suburban shopping areas were struggling quite a lot anyway, so lots of the businesses that are closed in areas like this weren't closed because of the pandemic, they were already closed. Lots of the things like the hairdressers and small service shops around here, it's had a really big impact.
To stay in business, smaller retailers are having to evolve. Ever the optimist, Alison Dries says it's the very essence of shops like hers which will help them ride out the storm.
Independents come into their own really when there's perhaps a latest craze or when there's market changes within their industry. You can respond really quickly. Some of the bigger chains are a lot of the orders are done say 6 months in advance. They come on containers or everything is pre-programmed. Well, we can get them in from our supplies just like that and have them practically next day.
So smaller is better? Well, maybe not. Unlike the big boys, independents like this can't use food to draw you in, and the British Independent Retail Association says that's just not playing fair.
Duncan Enright, it does seem strange that supermarkets seem to be able to sell presents at the moment alongside their food, whereas lots of independent stores are just having to close their doors by law.
It's really rough for small independent traders at the moment, isn't it? And the prospect of Christmas being curtailed is is awful, really. And what we need to do is pull together at times like this, because the one thing I have noticed, which is a good sign as a result of the lockdown, is that people are remembering what their local area is like. So, for instance, we want to see people coming back to Witney. Witney will welcome you back. And so campaigns by chambers of commerce and local councils, I think, can make quite a big difference in reminding people not only that their local high street is important at normal times, but during these times as well. They've been heroes. They've been the ones that kept us going. In between the lockdowns, all of our independent traders pulled out all the stops. A lot of them are making massive strides, like that wonderful toy shop there, to still serve their customers during these difficult times.
Winchester,
and we
as
will
well as
remember
Whitney, anything beginning WI, or CHI as well, Gillian Keegan as well, I'm sure. But it does seem unfair to some of those people. There's a certain amount of anger here, isn't there? And all the pubs, they had help out, eat out to help out, and now it's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. And, you know, obviously they did a brilliant job getting everything ready to open again and make the places COVID secure. And, you know, of course, we've had this second lockdown, which is why obviously we've extended the furlough scheme right through to March to deal with this uncertainty. And we're hoping that, you know, by Christmas, we can get the R rate under 1 and we can go about our shopping.
By Christmas? By December the 2nd, I thought.
Yeah, exactly. So December the 2nd, we will be finishing this lockdown and hope that we can get the R rate under number 1 and, you know, everybody can go around their business. The online acceleration of a trend is really quite stark, though. It took 7 years to go from 9% to 19%, and it's gone from 19% to 33% in the last 4 months. It's massively accelerated a trend that was there.
Yeah,
and
killing the high street even faster. Surely.
They have, and you know, Chichester's done a fantastic job. Their local bid, they've put together a local website and an app which helps everybody, all the local independent shops, to be able to reach online in a really efficient way, really quickly. That is something that at the moment, clearly, we're doing this online. Everything is online.
True.
So it has to be something that you know that we have to help the independent shops, as well as furlough, obviously, to keep them going in the interim. If we can help them move online quickly, that's also brilliant, because we want their goods. You know, we want to shop local. We want to support our local communities.
Duncan Enright, seriously, can we allow this to carry on when the high street was struggling anyway before the pandemic? Local shops,
it is a perfect storm, isn't it? Yes, no, and we must have a level playing field. Some of these large combines online, these multinationals who are taking sales away from the high street, are not playing the same game. Even their tax returns don't show that they're paying their way. I think we need to really look again at how our economy works and how it supports local and independent businesses and gives them a decent chance of being able to compete.
OK, thanks. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making political waves this week. Stonehenge, a monument so ancient it's seen the passing of civilisations. But this week, the final approval for the tunnel that will radically change its modern setting.
The major traffic problem within the village is going to be solved.
I am ecstatic.
Not everyone approves. Governments have come and gone, but the stones have remained unchanged.
The scheme will be destructive of its archaeology and its landscape form.
What damage is COVID doing to the youngest generations? Though only half full, nurseries have stayed open in lockdown too, a huge relief for these parents in Buckinghamshire.
My son has retained his routine and his sense of humanity.
Rising tensions seen a doubling of assaults on Thames Valley police officers, nearly 1,000 in March, condemned by the union.
We are the very people that are out there to protect and help the public.
Creativity has provided comfort for some. Among pictures chosen for an exhibition in the Ashmolean, one from an 11-year-old.
I miss my friends. I miss my school. It is torture. I hate it.
Isaac from Banbury vented his frustration through art.
It's going into a hole with complete blackness.
Isaac put it very strongly, and his picture put it as well. But we've got to keep going. Stonehenge and the tunnel. Duncan Enright. This is a bit of national infrastructure, which I know some locals want to see cars off the roads, but we've been waiting a long time. Is it a good one?
I'm not local enough to be able to tell, but I do blooming love Stonehenge, and we all do, I think, don't we? So we'd hate to see it spoiled. But the traffic problems around there for locals have been terrible for years. We're waiting to get some much needed improvements, which I don't think many people object to, on the A34 and the A40 in our area. So our national infrastructure is in desperate need. I think this is a good time during the recovery to be investing in those things.
David Johnston MP had a debate about it this week. And you've also got the Oxford-Cambridge Expressway, haven't you? Well, yes, yeah, they're all controversial. Gillian Keegan, you're finally getting the bypass.
Well, we're still hoping in Chichester, but we still, if we could get a tunnel, I think it could save a lot of our issues. But of course, we're quite close to the coast, probably a little closer to the coast than they are there at Stonehenge. So,
what, you're worried that it's going to fill with water or something?
That's what the highways people say. That's not my.
Oh no.
Yeah. We are. Obviously we are sort of quite close to the coast, but tunnels actually are normally, when you have these difficult infrastructure problems, and what everybody locally wants, because the traffic goes away. I used to live near to Hindhead, and that tunnel, when it was actually built, was greatly welcomed, although I will say it was 20 years of campaigning against it before it was there. So I guess that's the nature of how our infrastructure, local people definitely get a say, but tunnels, whilst they're disruptive to build, they usually aesthetically help things like the Stonehenge, etc., because obviously the traffic and the fumes go away from there. I guess the locals will continue the discussion, but we're incredibly slow to get a lot of infrastructure done in the UK, and build, and building back better will require us to be able to actually do some of these projects that have been decades, some of them under discussion. So we do need to get to make some decisions, and we do need to put in place we need to make
some decisions, Duncan Enright. That's why these things are being pushed through.
Yeah, we do, but we also need to find the funding to do it as well. But in the time of recovery, it's exactly the kind of expenditure that you need, isn't it? Get things going again and build the infrastructure we so sorely need. There's been a bit of a theme, this programme, hasn't it? I mean, we need to think about transport infrastructure, but we also need to think about the social infrastructure that goes along with it. So how we can rebuild our communities and including our high streets, make sure that they're resilient. And we've been through a punishing time.
And you are thinking about those things, Gillian, in the ministries. It's not just build high.
Yeah, well, no, we've got towns funds, we've got high streets, we've got specific, things to help that. I think there have been, though, I think many, from a community, I think many of us really appreciate our local communities now, and I'm hoping that will be here to stay.
OK, both of you, thank you very much. That's it for this week. Thank you to my guests, Gillian Keegan from Chichester, Duncan Enright from Oxfordshire. Next week, we'll be looking at the seemingly endless saga of the Cowes Floating Bridge. It's not a bridge for cows, it's the one in Cowes on the Isle of Wight. It's been in and out of service constantly in the 3 years since we last looked at it. So hopefully we'll see you next week. See you then. Goodbye.